Did you know that Descartes thought you could prove God exists just by thinking about it? But Kant disagreed. In this video, we'll break down Descartes' ontological argument and Kant's famous refutation, plus a modern challenge from Alvin Plantinga. Here's Descartes' argument. God is a supremely perfect being. A supremely perfect being possesses all perfections. Existence is a perfection, therefore God exists. A perfection is just an attribute that a maximally great or perfect being would possess, things like omnipotence, omnibenevolence, and moral perfection. Descartes adds existence to that list. Existence, he claims, belongs to God's very nature. In fact, God exists necessarily, meaning that he cannot not exist. For existence, Descartes says, cannot be separated from God any more than the idea of three angles can be separated from the idea of a triangle. Isn't Descartes, like Anselm before him, just defining God into existence? Well, yes, this is an a priori argument, one that uses reason and logic alone without relying on experience. Is this problematic? It's not immediately clear. After all, no one has a problem with non-existence following from a definition. For example, the non-existence of a squircle follows from its definition as a square circle, something that is logically impossible and therefore cannot exist. So what's wrong with saying that existence can follow from a definition too? Time to bring in Immanuel Kant and his famous objections. Kant begins by making some observations regarding the relationship between subject and its predicates. While it certainly seems the case that a triangle, the subject, necessarily has three angles, its predicate, this alone doesn't establish the absolute necessity of the triangle, but only that three angles are necessarily part of a triangle on and only on the condition that the triangle exists. And while it would be contradictory to affirm a triangle but deny that it has three angles, it's not contradictory to deny both the triangle and its angles at once. Similarly, Kant says, we need only deny that God exists along with his predicates, and no contradiction is entailed. Annihilate its existence in thought, and you annihilate the thing itself with all its predicates. While this is generally true, Descartes tries to argue that for a perfect being, existence itself is a predicate, so denying God's existence would be a contradiction. Kant is willing to entertain this for the sake of argument, but he thinks it's a bit cheeky. Descartes' argument requires us to treat existence not only as belonging to the concept of a possible being, but also as a special kind of predicate that applies only to one unique being. That seems, at the very least, suspicious. This is where Kant brings in his famous objection: existence is not a predicate. Being is evidently not a real predicate. It is merely the positing of a thing. Think he's wrong? Imagine, says Kant, you were to describe to me 100 coins. You would say, well, they're gold, round, and a bit musty. You wouldn't then say, oh, and they exist. Existence isn't a property like roundness or goldness. 100 coins merely imagined have all the same properties as 100 real coins. Picture God in your mind. Now picture him with a pink beard. Okay, something has changed. God now has the property of having a beard that is pink. Now add the property existence. What changes in the concept? Nothing. What you're really doing when you say that a thing exists is positing that thing with all of its predicates into existence. You're not adding a new predicate. Bertrand Russell reinforces this idea. When we say God's beard is pink, we're using the word is in a predicative manner. But when we say God is, as in God exists, we're using is entirely differently, this time in the existential manner. Supporters of the ontological argument, Russell claims, are confusing the two, using the is in God is predicatively, when it ought to be used existentially. But is Kant's argument actually successful? Kant assumes that for a concept and a real object to refer to the same thing, their predicates must be the same. For example, if we want an accurate concept of a yellow duck, our concept must be a duck and be yellow. Existence cannot be a predicate because then the real object would have a predicate that the concept lacks, just like how my concept of a yellow duck would not be identical to a real duck that isn't yellow. But Alvin Plantinga argues that this assumption is false. Take the concept the tallest man in Boston. The concept includes being a man, being in Boston, and being taller than any other man in Boston. But the property of whether or not this man is married is not contained within the concept, yet the existent man must be one or the other. Therefore, Kant's assertion that the content of a concept must be the same as the content of the object is false. Concepts can refer to real objects even if their properties differ. Does this break down Kant's argument, or does his overall point that existence is not a predicate still stand? And even if Kant succeeds, does it actually refute the ontological argument? I mean, Anselm's original version didn't even claim that existence is a predicate. I'll let you find it out in the comments for now. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.